I want to spend a few minutes in this video going over what classes are really shaping up to be strong in the War Within Season 3. Now, for context, we're about a week and a half in. The race to World First is still going on, and because of that, that also means that it's early in the season. Some people don't have tier set yet. Some people are raiding significantly and not pushing. There are also some players and groups that really spend the first couple weeks farming gear on all of their characters that they plan on playing or expecting to be strong or be meta later on in the season, so they're ready to go. Now, the players who are pushing, they're either extremely passionate and they're about pushing early and often, or they're just having a fun time enjoying it because, honestly, a lot of these dungeons are really fun this season, and the tier sets are extremely powerful, extremely enjoyable, and it's shaping up to be like a fun season. So in this video, I want to try to dissect what's been going on with popularity classes in terms of Mythic Plus in DPS, healers, and of course tanks. Now, tanks I can talk to a little bit more because I'm a tank player, a Brewmaster main for those who don't know, and I've played with a variety of different DPS. Healers, not so much. I've played with a handful of... I've played with like R-Shaman, I've played with R-Druid, I've played with H-Pal, and I've played with Prez. I haven't played too much with Mistweaver or the pre-specs this season, but I want to kind of give context to what they're able to do in some of these keys and what I think the meta might shape up to be. Now, the one last thing I will say is I'm personally not a meta chaser. I play Brewmaster because I enjoy it, and I play with my friends because I enjoy playing with them. They also happen to play physical damage specialization, so it all works out. But let's talk about it. So what's really unique about this is that if you take a look at Archon and you just look at it right off the bat, you can assume like, wow, VDH is really good. They are the S tier tank. And you have obviously a couple of A tier tanks and a B tier tank. Now, what's funny about this is if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that every tank outside of BDK is timing, at least according to this data, 17s. And when you can look at their damage, they're all fairly close. I guess the top 4 damage tanks are close. BDK is obviously down bad a little bit. But what's funny about this data is that if we then go over to Raider.io, while someone like Stone, who's currently pushing on the VDH, is doing very well, as you start to scroll down, you're not going to see as many VDHs as you might see like things like Warriors, Brewmasters, or Paladins. Now, if we take a look at specifically like tanks, so if we come here, go to all class leaderboards, and we go to tanks specifically, you're actually going to see it what feels like more protection warriors, especially in like the top 10, than anything else. Then if you start to kind of scroll down a little bit more, you're going to see a lot of Brewmaster representation. Some of these are Brewmaster mains or players who've been playing the spec for a long time. Some people who are pushing on the Brew are currently, I would say, newer, especially once you get to like the second and third page. But you're also seeing a massive representation of protection paladins. You have Shun, who is on the CN region, who is actually kind of sliming right now. And then you have a lot who are kind of creeping up here as people are getting 4 sets, starting to push into higher keys, rolling up keys, getting a Resil, etc., etc. Near the end of the season, I fully expect Protection Paladin to be probably one of the more popular choices for these keys, as well as maybe VDH. We're probably going to see a very one-sided-ish season again, where the 2 meta tanks that we've been seeing the last couple of years are going to stick to being the meta tanks. It's been a VDH season. We saw Dragonflight Season 3, Dragonflight Season 4. The War Within, they got a little bit of a break, and they were actually probably one of the worst tanks for Mythic Plus, where Prop Paladin shined, and then obviously last season it was VDH once again. So I'm personally thinking that it's going to probably lean a little bit more in favor to the Protection Paladins going into this season, or towards the end of the season, but VDH is doing well, and I don't want to like discount how strong Brewmaster, Protection Warrior, and Guardian Druid can be for people who are passionate about pushing on that. Obviously, someone like Vegan or Squish Vegan is going to obviously perform very well because he's a Guardian Druid kind of, I don't want to call him a one trick, but very passionate. He's actually pushing on 2 different characters right now. You also have Yoru and Forest, who are players on the US regions that I'm familiar with, and I believe Awu has also been doing some keys. He's down a little bit further, but he's mostly just a pug player. Now, I mentioned that there are a lot of players who are kind of just like rolling up characters right now and really focus on gearing them. I know Yoda is generally a player who tends to do this, where the first couple of weeks he really focuses on obviously raid, but also gearing up the tanks and the characters he plans on playing, and they will start pushing probably in the next couple of weeks as well. So these leaderboards are going to change pretty significantly. Right now, you're seeing a handful of players who aren't usually at the top, especially like later in the season. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Now, what I like about the current representation is that it's diverse. You're seeing 5 of the 6 tanks being represented. BDK is a little down bad. I don't know if that's because of popularity right now. They are the least popular tank. They've always had an issue in Mythic Plus with how damage is being taken and the changes to Blood Shield and how Deathstrike works. I believe at the start of the War Within really, really hurt them in a lot of areas, but I don't think it hurt them as much as how BDK just interacts in Mythic Plus. They're only able to generate and heal so much per second, and eventually with an infinite scaling system, you get to a point where you're not able to counter that damage fast enough without doing some cheeky things like obviously like CC, kiting, or any kind of like weird effects or strange routes where you have to like avoid certain mobs. So BDK is in a very weird spot for Mythic Plus specifically, and until they have like a super uber broken tier set or they're slightly reworked, they probably won't be meta in the near future. When it comes to some of the other tanks, obviously we're used to the three powerhouses at the top here. You have things like Disrupting Shout, as well as continuous CC through things like, Shockwave and AoE Stormbolt, especially now that Fraught Warriors are back to playing Thane. You obviously have things like Avenger's Shield, as well as the entire arsenal of protection utility. So Blessing of Freedom is actually used to counter and immune a lot of mechanics right now. We have Bop, we have Spell Warding, we have Lay on Hands, Sacrifice, if I didn't mention that already. So there's just a lot going on in the Protection Paladin kit, and I think once people actually start getting deep into the season and people are kind of getting bissed out in best in slot gear, I think Protection Paladin will take a leap. And I think VDH right now, because of its popularity coming out of last season, I think a lot of people are playing it thinking it's still going to be strong for Mythic Plus, especially with the repeat pool of Floodgate and Priory, as well as things like Arakara and Dawnbreaker making a return. But I ultimately think that VDH will start to kind of fall off a little bit later in the season. I think Protection Paladin will kind of take a step up. Now, this is all speculation. I'm a Brewmaster player, so my opinion doesn't matter. But Brewmaster is also doing extremely well. The one thing I will say about the Brewmaster Monk is that while we did get a slight rework and we are performing a lot better, our damage is extremely high, almost comparable to something like a Protection Warrior, especially in large AoE. We can have a ton of single target too through Massive Harmony. The big change that we got for CC is this improved Invoke Nizao, the Black Ox node. This is just a terrible talent. No one plays it, as you can see here, based on this like pseudo heat map, or at least for the most popular build. It's clunky to use. The knockup is off the global cooldown, so as most players spam their keybinds, you'll summon your Ox and it'll knock mobs up immediately because you're spamming the button. And then on top of that, it's based around where your Black Ox is. So if you go to knock them up, there and the mobs that you want to actually CC aren't near the cow, it's just GG. It's you're just well, you're out of luck because it's going to knock up random mobs. So their toolkit didn't really change, but their survivability and their damage profile definitely did. So Brewmaster is looking really strong. And on top of that, we're seeing a much larger representation of the class because of this rework. I think content creators, I think the rework, both have contributed to enticing players more to play this spec. I think, especially with like a non-breath build, it has a couple, you can argue, less keybinds. The hero talents are passive, it does a ton of damage, and its survivability doesn't take as much effort as it used to, at least until you're getting to the upper echelon of Mythic Plus. So good rework in my opinion to Brewmaster, but obviously a lot of people are still upset that it isn't necessarily a rework, but yeah, my opinion on that is a little different. So anyways, that is where the tanking is. Now that was a long-winded rant. Now if we start to take a look at like healers, I think the meta for healers is really starting to take shape already. You're seeing a big spike in popularity for Resto Shamans and Resto Druids. Resto Druids took a backseat the last few seasons, but they are looking very strong right now, mostly due to their ability to do like throughput as well as bringing the Mark of the Wild buff. Boomkin isn't doing too hot, and Guardian Druid is like a less popular tank, and because of that, you're gonna maybe slot the rest of Druid in for that buff for the throughput for some of these fights like Swamp Face, for example, depending on how you pull like the first boss of Priory, like that, for example. Rest of Druid really shines. Rest of Shaman is doing not only a lot of damage, but a lot of HPS as well, and their cooldowns can really cover those pivotal moments in a key where you need good throughput healing, and their Farseer specialization allows them to actually do a ton of damage with their new 4-set by summoning their grandpas and their great grandpas. They're doing so much damage when they can. Disc Priest is also doing a lot of damage currently. I haven't played with Disc too much this season. The main 3 healers I've been playing with have been H-Pal, our Druid, and our Shaman. Both all have pros and cons to them. And as the meta shapes up, I can imagine that it will be more of like a 3-prong season where you can kind of slot any of these. Now, if we take a look over at kind of if we go back to like that timed run leaderboard, you're going to see this kind of being showcased. So we have someone like Vikman, who is obviously playing with Stone and doing really well, and you're going to see a lot of seasoned R shamans. So Shamrock, for example, is playing with the Gillick team at Shatterek. As we kind of scroll down, you'll probably see people familiar like Helena. You'll see Rain. These players have kind of been playing shaman for a long time, and they're obviously repping a lot. You're going to see a sprinkles of those one-trick passionate players about their class, like someone like Ortimist, for example. I don't want to call him a one-trick. I just meaning like he's very passionate about playing the Mistweaver, and he's very good at it. So he's gonna be pushing on that. So I would say out of the three kind of roles, you're really seeing a more strict healer meta than anything else. Now, what's funny is that if we take a look at damage dealers, the representation is all over the place, but we are starting to see kind of patterns crop up as as everyone kind of expected. Frosty K is living up to what it was doing on beta testing, or PTR testing, I should say. DK is being represented in most of the top keys, and you're seeing that Arcane Mage still being played, as well as a couple of people playing Frost here and there. Both of the mage specializations are doing extremely well. I don't know if the fire buffs recently helped them out at all. I think you're still just going to play either Arcane or Frost depending on like the comp or the key that you're in. But those two specializations or two specs have been doing very well. Now, everything else is kind of getting sprinkled in here and there. You're seeing competitive warriors performing, so Far Over and Noxiv, respective warriors in each of their regions. You also have players like Deeps, climbing up into some of these hierarchies being done. You're seeing a lot of rogues. A lot of them are playing sub, but you're seeing all three specs being played. Things like Sin for the prio dam if you ever need. You have Outlaw for the consistent dam, and you have Sub Robe for those like bursty Shadow Dance windows. DH is also doing okay. I'm not super familiar with how DH is being played currently with their tier sets. All I know is that they're doing a ton of damage in larger AoE packs because of the nature of how it plays with things like Unkept AoE, I-Beam, and Blade Dance, and these kind of like 40-second mini burst windows. And that's been kind of the meta that's shaping up currently. You have all of these classes that are doing really well, things like the Warrior, especially like specifically like Fury, Sub Rogue, Frosty K, Havoc DH. They all have like these weird like 30 to 40 second like burst windows where they're every like 30 to 40 seconds they're doing a ton of damage, and then they might have like larger minute and a half or 2-minute CDs. So it's interesting. I like looking at this data now as someone who doesn't really chase the meta and look at this. It's just interesting to know what classes are doing well and how it's kind of shaping up. So I hope this analysis kind of helps a little bit. I'm kind of an idiot, and I was inspired last season from Yoda doing this. He did a couple of videos after the first couple of weeks kind of talking about how it's shaping up, but I believe he stopped doing those videos if I remember correctly. So these were my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.